well, for your first chapter of Dominion, Fall of the House of Saul. I am super excited to have you on here. A couple months ago, I did a 5 indie comic books that I was really excited to see, and yours was one of them. It was the one I was the most excited actually.
Oh
To
man,
get.
thank you for that.
Yes, very highly anticipated over here on my end. And man, I'll tell you what, with the press copy that you sent me, man, I can't wait to have the physical copy in my hand. I'm a big, huge physical copy guy. I think digital is the future, but I definitely see the collectors, people that love the book with a good story are going to get the physical copy. So,
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
further ado, we have here Dr. Bell with us. Dr. Bell, if you can just introduce yourself real quick and give a little background about this book, Dominion and Fall of the House of Saul.
Yeah, man. Man, that's a mouthful. Um, yeah, I'm Dr. Bell, Dr. Barron Bell. I'm a professor of art and design with Liberty University and with George Fox University, both Christian schools. And yeah, I'm the writer, creator, and pencil artist for Dominion Fall of the House of Saul, which is as I describe it, it's kind of like Star Wars meets Narnia. It's a sci fantasy uh, space opera that pretty much
Yeah.
it kind of uses inspiration of the book of First Samuel in the Bible to set the scene and set the tale of the rise of Dominion, which is representative of the kingdom of Israel and the first king Saul. The difference is in my book, it's set in space first and foremost, and then the all of the characters are animals. They're anthropomorphic animal characters, and so it kind of takes the best of a lot of different things, like Lion King or like Dune or Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Robotech, Thundercats. You know, a lot of different. You know, because I loved everything that I loved. There's a little something of everything that I love in this book.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned Thundercats. I saw a little bit of that in there too. Um, I'd like you to explain why you decided to choose Saul in particular. I read a little bit of background how you went into the theaters as a young kid and saw Star Wars and it opened
Hmm.
up the world for you when it came to space opera and adventure. But
Hmm.
and obviously you're a Christian, so you read the Bible.
Yeah.
There's tons of great stories in the Bible, but why First Samuel? Why King Saul? Why did you decide to use this one in particular, this one story in particular, and set it up in space?
Well, you know, it's interesting because um, after I did my first book called Radio Free America, you can find that at terminusmedia.com. And I said, you know, I want to do something else. I wanted to, because my first book was very well grounded in reality. Well, kind of pseudo reality. It's like a what if World War III scenario from the urban perspective. But I didn't want to be that deep. I wanted to be fun. But
Yeah.
I still wanted to be deep, but I wanted to have a little bit more fun doing it. And so I said, well, why don't I adapt a Bible story and put it into comic book form? But let me not do it in the typical way where it's like swords and sandals and all that other stuff. I said, let me set it in space. And let's make it fun. Put some animal characters in there and just really make it dynamic. The reason why chose Saul was because everybody chooses David.
Hmm.
When you're telling like the typical quintessential Bible story, you think of a few things. Okay, you think of Jesus dying on the cross. Okay, you think of Moses and the Ten Commandments, and then you think of David and Goliath. And so those are the quintessential Bible stories. I didn't want to reach for the low hanging fruit. I wanted to reach a little higher, and I said, you know, why don't instead of David, I focus on Saul, because Saul is a much more complicated character. He's always cast as the villain of the story, and I'm like, well, shoot, let me get into a little bit more of why is he portrayed that way, and can we see a little bit more complexity in that character? And the thing is, when you look at a character like Saul, you know, it's very Shakespearean. You know what I'm saying? His story is very Shakespearean. He's almost like Othello. You know what I'm saying? He's a troubled individual who has to deal with a lot of internal conflict, but it's also external conflict too. And unfortunately for Saul, every decision that he makes is the wrong decision, and it not only affects him, but it affects his family too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to make. Specifically, like you said, a lot of us, especially for us churchgoers and have been to Sunday Bible school, we all know the story of David and Goliath. You mean Jesus Christ, Joseph in the colorful coat, Moses parting the Red Sea. There's all these staple Bible stories that always stick with us, and we have these images in our head. There's really none of Saul, which, like you said, is a complicated character, but also is very important and crucial to the kingdom of Israel, and how David even, you can't really appreciate, I tell people, you can't really appreciate the story of David and his coming to be king and how he ran it when you don't know the story of the first king, Saul.
That's right.
So speaking of Saul, I would also like to mention what I like about that I read in your book is his relationship with Jonathan. I think the only time we ever, if you read the Bible, there's a lot more about Jonathan and Saul, but obviously you had to take some liberties to expand that relationship. I think you did amazing. It reminds me of the Richard Gere version of, I think it's the Richard Gere version of David, where they kind of go back and they show David and Jonathan being best friends. So explain a little bit more of this dynamic between Jonathan and Saul, and how you came up with that arc, that story arc for Jonathan, which I love that story arc that you've thrown in there.
Well, here's the thing. Dominion is a story about war, but it's also a story about family. The thing that I wanted, and I love the Bible, and I'm a history buff. Outside of the fact that I'm a Christian, and I love the spiritual aspects, I love the history aspects of it, and I keep going back to it. And the thing that always leaves me wanting more is I always wanted to know more about their relationship. I mean, I obviously wanted to know more about the relationship between Saul and his daughter and his wife as well. That's why I kind of embellished that too in the story. But Jonathan is kind of like the protagonist of the story. Jonathan is a son who is seeking the favor of his dad and never going to get it. Never going to get it because his dad is a narcissist. And so that intrigued me. And the thing is, okay, I can stay up. I'm not fair calling Saul a narcissist. I think that he's complicated. He's very, very complicated. Because Saul, at the heart of Saul, was a man who wanted to be a good king. He wanted to be. He really did. It was something that he didn't choose. It was chosen for him. But when he kind of got into it, he wanted to do the best he could. But the problem is he wasn't as equipped. So he wasn't equipped to be a good dad. He wasn't equipped to be a good husband. He wasn't equipped to be a good king. You know what I'm saying? He just had, and this is what Samuel and God through Samuel warned Israel about this. They warned him. He warned him. He said, you know what? I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. You said you want a king just like everybody else. Here's a warning about what a king is going to do or is going to be. And yes, he may look very good on the outside, but man, he's going to be just a pill on the inside. He's just really, and that's really that was Saul. And unfortunately, and this is, like I said, why I embellished the narrative. When you read the Bible, there are huge swaths of time that pass between verses. You know what I'm saying? Like when you read one verse and then you read another verse, you never know, maybe 20 years passed, maybe 1 year passed. You don't know how much time passed between the time, okay, Saul gets chosen for the king, and then he goes into his first battle. There's time that passed. And then, of course, once 1 minute Saul is there being chosen to be king, and the next minute Jonathan's on the scene. Jonathan has to be at least 16 or 17 years old, maybe older than that. So it's like there's years that pass by, and it's like, what happened? So that was my my motivation, is to really kind of fill in some blanks. And this is, as a writer, this is gold. You know what I'm saying? You already have a very well established character that everybody knows, and now you can actually fill in some blanks.
Yeah, that's awesome that you said that too, especially with Jonathan. When it comes to Jonathan and David shows up in the scene, David and Jonathan end up becoming best friends in the Bible. They're very close to each other. The thing is that a lot of people know that David wasn't just handed the keys to the throne
Oh no.
right away. He
Mm-mm.
fought for
Mm-mm.
years under
Mm-hmm.
Saul. So Saul's story doesn't just end with him
No.
losing the anointing. The fall of
Mm-mm.
his house doesn't just fall there.
Mm-mm.
You mean the guy is still running a
Mm-mm.
campaign. David's out there fighting his campaigns for him,
Mm-hmm.
and Saul is still battling with David being underneath his
Mm-hmm.
army, but yet getting all the exposure. And like you said, we don't want to call Saul a narcissist, but the truth of the matter was he was so jealous that
Mm-hmm.
of David for doing it right when he had the
Mm-hmm.
chance to do it. And in this first
Yeah.
book, I like the way you put it.
Saul
I'd also,
wanted to be.
also want to add. I also want to add too, because we're running short on time. I want you to also explain the Philistines. These are like the Israelites' arch nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people know the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant when Israel was ruled by judges, and God cursed them and pretty much gave them hell, and they gave it back to the Israelites, and that's when the Israelites decided they wanted Saul as the king. And now we have the Philistines knocking on the door here in Dr. Bell's book. I like the way you keep them kind of a mystery on the outer rims of
Mm-hmm.
the border. And these guys are aching. Explain that dynamic between Saul's insanity or his sanity with these people knocking on the door. Why is Saul just chilling there while these people are knocking on their doors?
Well, I'm setting forth a mystery initially in book one, and when you guys read book one, you'll see that the Philistines there's a presence there that you don't see in book one except for one thing, and you'll see that when you read it. You
Yeah,
already know it.
yeah. I
You
don't want
already
to give
know,
any spoilers though, because I think that was
but they'll
epic.
know it. But there's a mystery that will be solved in book two. The Philistines are on the fringe of dominion. They have another empire, and at first, in the beginning of things, the Philistines, they were top dog, and then Dominion, with the help of the Almighty, became top dog through miraculous events, which you will see some of that in book two. But because of the fact that the Philistines are an ever-present enemy, they are pretty much knocking at the gates of dominion in the beginning of book one. You're going to see that the threat is mounting again. They are marshaling their forces for an invasion, and they're slowly but surely eroding the borders of dominion so that they can actually come in and invade. And so this is the threat that we're starting to see in book one, and we're definitely going to see it more in book two. The thing you're going to notice though is with the design, and I just started posting some designs of the Philistines, is
Yeah.
that the denizens of dominion, they're all mammals for the most part. So you're going to see the lions, the birds, the gorillas, all of that stuff. But the Philistines, however, are reptiles and amphibians. And so you're going to see crocs, alligators, snakes, lizards, and all that stuff. And so I just posted a picture on my Instagram of the Philistine shock trooper, and he's pretty much a living weapon. It's like you can take his guns off of him, and he's still lethal. And so that's one of the things I wanted. Someone asked me, "Oh, that's Goliath." I'm like, "No." I haven't shown Goliath yet. Y'all don't know what Goliath is about yet. You got to read book one. You start seeing a little bit, but you're going to see a little bit more in book two. But yeah, nah, man. Yeah, I haven't posted them yet. But yes, the Philistines are a lizard or alligator shock troopers.
I like the way you use the animals to separate. I started kind of noticing that too, especially when you started leaking the Philistines, how they look. I was kind of checking that out, and I was like, oh, I kind of see where this is going. I'm really excited to see this secret reveal. I don't know if it's going to happen in book two or not, but I think the tone and the pacing of this book was well thought out. I don't. Did you just think about it? In the whole story in its entirety and then break it down, or did you have it planned out that way?
Well, it took the form of a couple of things. Number one, I'm taking an already fantastic story, giving glory to the Lord who wrote it
Amen.
himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm taking a fantastic story and adapting it, but I'm also pacing it according to I'm a script writer, comic book writer. I've written screenplays, and so I kind of have an idea of pacing. And building anticipation. That's why we don't see David. We're not going to see him not until the end of book two. And so, you know, that's the thing. So yes, I've decided, and you know, I have a co-writer too, Daniel. He also came in. Daniel Hancock is a great writer. He actually did an audio drama called End of Darkness, which is the story of the life of Jesus, which is amazing. So you can put a link to that in your video.
Yeah,
So I'll send it to you. But he came in. So whereas I'm like a broadsword in my storytelling, I can tell the broad sweep and build this world. Daniel is the scalpel that will kind of tie nodes together of storytelling that will enrich and enhance the characters. So it's kind of like a tag team between God, me, and Daniel, and we put it all together.
That's awesome. I know you got a meeting coming up here in 10 minutes, so I'd like to close it here. Maybe I can have you on later after the book starts getting more audience. And,
oh yeah,
we can do
absolutely, absolutely.
like on the YouTube
One thing I want to say is that the book, the next book is coming out Christmas. We have 3 books that's going to tell the first story arc of the beginning of the fall of the House of Saul. The next books coming next year will be the story of David, and then in 2022 will be the story of Solomon, and that'll round out the omnibus for the first Dominion storyline, First Kings.
Do you plan on any? I know this is thinking way far ahead, but do you plan on like maybe an animated series in the future or something? Is that something that's kind of like working in the back of your head there?
I can neither confirm nor deny. But I will say that I will say that it's a possibility.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dr. Bell, is there any final words you'd like to say before closing out?
Pick it up, man. www.terminusmedia.com. Just go there, and the book is ready to go. We do print on demand, so if you want a print copy, you can pay for a print copy, or you can immediately download a digital version of the book. We are actually preparing for translation in Spanish, Portuguese,
awesome.
German, and French.
All right, sweet. All right, well, Dr.
International sales are already available right now. So.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you had awesome. I think this is great. I think you have a Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia in your hand. If not, like I think this is. I'm actually like this better because I'm a huge space opera guy and it's fantasy. So, congratulations on the release of this first book, Dr. Bell. Hopefully, I'll be speaking to you again in the near future.
You will, and you got me anytime, bro. You got me anytime. As a matter of fact, I think is it this weekend or next weekend? I'll be on Comics in the Cross, doing some talking about drawing and character design and character development. I'll send you a link to that, so that it's going to be live. So before it goes live, I'll send you a link so you can actually log into that as well. But yeah, man, I've been on several different podcasts, and they just keep coming, and I love doing them. So it's like, I'm a teacher at heart, and to God be the glory.
Amen to that, brother.